So thank you all for joining us today. Today I'm really excited to actually talk about this topic of being able to move transfer data securely when moving to or from the cloud. Really exciting topic. I know it's a hot topic for a lot of us. The cloud is definitely something which is at the forefront of a lot of our minds. So I'm happy to dive straight into it. Now today, I'll be your presenter. My name is Michael Barford, and I'm a solutions engineer at Fortra. And in my role, I get the privilege of being able to speak to individuals, companies big and small, around their data security requirements and their data security needs. I'm joined with two fantastic panelists. It's an absolute honor to have them both here. I'm going to start off with Gary, who is an information security, cybersecurity and data protection consultant. So many hats there. He's got over 25 years of experience in the industry, and he runs his own consultancy, helping out companies big and small, make sense of their security and data protection. So thank you for joining us, Gary. Alongside Gary, we've also got Funzo Richard, who's an information security officer for a US healthcare company and also a GRC thought leader. He leads the Enterprise Cybersecurity Trust Program for the organization, and in his spare time, he writes on business risk, cybersecurity strategy, and governance as well. So thank you very much for joining us as well, Funzo.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, today's webinar is presented by us at Fortra. Here at Fortra, we do specialize in infrastructure protection as well as data security. I personally work a lot closer on the data security side, so please don't ask any questions on infrastructure protection for myself. Really excited to be able to kind of share and discuss this topic with yourselves here. When we do talk of the cloud, we're going to begin this discussion looking at kind of like the high level view or a bird's eye view of what cloud itself is. Why is it relevant for businesses today, and why that data itself, which we're moving between the cloud and on-premise environments, is important. And then we're going to dive into the challenges, some of the concerns, controls, and issues where hopefully we can figure out and present to you some ways to tackle them and actually solve those issues and pain points that you may have. So diving into it then, the cloud itself has been, it's been growing for about 16 or so years. It started off growing pretty much exponentially, where it seemed like it was the biggest, hottest topic of that you could get, and a lot of investment, a lot of time and effort's gone into kind of adopting it. And as time's gone on, or as the years have gone on, it seems like this has kind of teetered down a little bit. They've kind of slowed down. It is estimated sort of in the next couple of years that organizations in general will spend more on cloud services than they will on kind of on-premise services. But Gary, if it's okay, I'm going to pick on you first of all. In your line of work, you kind of work with a lot of individuals and companies around this. Have you noticed a bit of a slowdown when it comes to kind of adoption of the cloud?
No, not at all. Quite the reverse. I think whether an organization would specifically call it a strategy to move to cloud or not, most organizations and individuals and small businesses I talk to have a cloud presence somewhere. And quite often they will, if I speak to them about security, they will point up and say, yep, my data's on the cloud and it's secure. We then get into the nitty-gritty of what that actually means, but no, absolutely not. There's no slowdown. And I think even, in fact, to the point now where many smaller organizations especially don't even really call it cloud. They'll just simply say, yeah, my data's stored with Google. I have it on Google Drive, or yeah, I have my data with Amazon. So yeah, I think it's just only going to go up, I think.
And Funzo, you're kind of you're on the front lines really, working for an organization specifically. I mean, how has kind of clouds impacted yourself? Do you kind of consider it more within the business?
Gary is actually very correct. If you look at 2022, when we experienced COVID, it transformed how cloud adoption happened. Organizations who were still thinking about going to the cloud had to move to the cloud to remain in business. So cloud is not going to slow down. The future of business is cloud. And for my organization, after COVID, we decided to move fully into the cloud. The data center moved to the cloud as well. So cloud is going to be the future of businesses.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
and
So
I
in
think sorry, I was just going to say, just to again back up at what Funzo said there, you know, that move to cloud, driven by world circumstances, I think, you know, that we all saw over the last few years, but also even in the current economic climate, certainly within the United Kingdom, you've got the cost of living crisis and people worrying about you know, their businesses and how can they save costs. I think because of that scalability and that cost effectiveness of a lot of cloud providers, you know, the adoption of cloud, again, because of world circumstances, I think is only ever going to be another driving force.
So that's a
Agreed.
great insight. So with the I guess with that, then you mentioned cost as kind of one of the driving forces there. Is there actually a cost benefit to moving to the cloud? Is there not actually potentially more cost or more of a pain for businesses to move to the cloud because it's a different skill set? You know, you've got to hire new colleagues to assist with that, new architects to be able to work in those types of environments. Is it actually a cost saving, do you think?
So I will tell you, Michael, yes, there is cost saving, but there's also an expense. So it depends on where you look at. So let's talk about cost for a moment. Yes, you're going to bring in new resources who have cloud expertise to help you set up your cloud environment the way it should. But if you look at the big picture, first you're talking about, just like what Gary said, you want to be in business. You don't want to buy hardware that's going to keep you down. We're all working remotely. You don't want to open offices. Cloud takes care of these expenses in a way. But you can also incur costs if you do not understand what you're doing when you want to migrate to the cloud. Because cloud has been around for about 16 years now, it's expected that we have a lot of people who have the skills to actually operate in a cloud environment. Or by the way, we're actually using a cloud platform for this conversation we're having today, a SaaS. And everyone in one shape or form, you're actually going to interact with cloud. Because of the way cloud is set up, let's talk about a SaaS, for instance, it's actually very easy for you to use it. You just click, you point, you click, and it goes in. So there is some cost, but if businesses do not understand or have a good strategy, then the cost is going to go up instead of going down, then losing the benefit of moving to the cloud.
Yeah, I think, and again, just to back up what you said there, Funzo, I think it's really important. And if there's one piece of advice I would give to anyone watching this is, first of all, understand why you want to move to cloud, what cost benefits you're going to have or achieve, but have a clear strategy. So what is the objective? And then have a defined strategy that will get you there. But I think the other thing as well is we talk about cost and pain and such. I prefer another word, and it's investment. You're investing in your organization. It's an investment in the future of your organization, and its scalability and the size of it is only going to improve by investing in a strategy that you've developed. I think that's the difference. So to answer your question just a second ago, is it painful? Yes, change is always painful. But if you do it intelligently and you have a clear strategy, I think the cloud is definitely the way forward for many organizations. And some of my clients are 3 people in a room, and the largest client is 2,500, and they all equally have a clear strategy to move forward and move with cloud.
So Michael, let me add to what Gary just said. Strategy is a very important piece of it. But let me also say, you need a business need. If you don't really understand why you want to move to the cloud, you will not have the right strategy to go to the cloud. So besides identifying your business need, then you want to talk about a strategy. Part of your strategy will include a cost benefit analysis or the business impact analysis. If I move my data to the cloud, what is going to be the impact of it? And there is something else that you need to consider, and Gary just said it. He has consulted for different types of organizations, small and large. You will need a partner to help you decide your cloud strategy, a partner that can provide the right solution for you to do it. Because keep in mind, yes, you may want to go to the cloud, but if you operate in an organization or an industry like mine that's very regulated, you have to consider the impacts of you moving your data to the cloud. Are you going to comply with the expectation of, regulators when you move your data to the cloud? So business strategy is very important, the business need and the choice of partner to help you in your journey as you migrate to the cloud.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That's a great insight. Absolutely. So I think we can all use a bit of help, can't we, when it comes to any projects which we've got. So absolutely getting that right help is going to be a good benefit there. I guess with the cloud, then, on the screen there's quite a few general benefits to cloud. I kind of like to think of there being being the ability to enable businesses to do things that they couldn't do before. I think you touched on it a bit earlier, but SaaS, the platform which we're on, has this cloud technology has enabled us to do something like this. Do you find that it's kind of helped or driven projects? The fact that you now have a footprint or the whole stack kind of in the cloud, has that kind of helped drive new projects to kind of come to the forefront?
Oh, very certainly, Michael. We do a lot of things on the cloud. We have a data center, as I said earlier, but we also have projects, the scalability, the ability to do it very quickly. We install, we create new instances of virtual machines in the cloud so that we can do the projects we need to do. It's scalable. Well, to an extent, of course, it's affordable. Resources are measured and monitored so we are not spending beyond what we need to do. But let me quickly touch on disaster recovery. As part of the business continuity strategy, every quarter we run a disaster recovery testing. And if this were to be on-prem, it would be very difficult to do. But because it's in the cloud, we can actually stand a new instance. We put everything we need to do, we shut it down, we test it, then we'll see if we can restore based on our processes. So that's one of the projects we do, because if we do not test our infrastructure, our environment, we will not know if we need to restore in case of an event, how effective will it be? So there is a lot of benefit to actually adopting cloud. It's, as a matter of fact, frankly speaking, I don't know what we've been doing before 16 years ago while we're not in the cloud. That's the way I'm going to put it.
That's a great way to put it.
I would completely agree, and I think the benefits of cloud, you've listed them really well, and I think going back to that previous point that Funzo said, you've got to have a good understanding of why you're doing this, and have before you start thinking about your strategy. Here's a list of good reasons to invest in cloud. As he said, even from a DR point of view, that point is made there. The reliability and the resilience in your infrastructure, going to a cloud provider is again, the investment is not going to be as high if you're looking to build your own private cloud, for instance, or if you decide that you're going to have on-premise systems. You've got to have that resilience in your infrastructure, in your networks, in the actual systems themselves, whereas all of that becomes part of the package. And everything has got very cloudy, and you can pretty much pick up lots of SaaS products and services out there that will deliver great benefits to an organization at a much far reduced cost than you having to invest in something, have it installed in your own on premises, and the interoperability of that with your own networks and your own infrastructure can be quite problematic. Whereas with cloud, it's almost a click and collect process. So there's various there's many different benefits, I think, to having this, and you've listed some really good ones there.
No, fantastic. I mean, it's kind of what you've mentioned there is no surprise then. It's estimated about 94 to 97% of enterprises have used cloud in some way, like you said, as a SaaS or as a platform or whatever, really. What's actually really striking is we've kind of some reports have kind of shown that about 50%, give or take, 50% of all enterprise data kind of lives within these so-called cloud environments or these cloud areas. What's really striking about that, though, is we've seen that it seems about a third of people asked consider that the information stored in these environments is their responsibility to secure, to keep a lock on and to keep control of. Do you think that's quite a surprising statistic, kind of from what you're hearing there, or is that quite normal? Do you think it's relatively normal to put this much trust into these cloud providers around your data?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I like Funzo coming from his perspective on the organizations that he works with, but certainly again, when I back to what I said previously, when I speak to people, if I go to a networking event and I meet entrepreneurs who tend to be sole traders, or they have multiple businesses, and I ask them about security, what they normally do is they will point that way and say, our IT guy looks after it. And then they'll say, because it's all secure because it's on the cloud. So they'll point in two different directions. And I'm kind of going, no, you need to point back at yourself, because you can't outsource risk for one thing. When people do come to me especially and say, yeah, everything's secure, we've got it on the cloud, I am at pains to remind them that cyber criminals aren't attacking the cloud. Typically, they're attacking the endpoints, they're attacking us, they're attacking our devices. So, but it doesn't surprise me that people put a lot of faith in the cloud being secure.
Gary, I like the way you put it. You cannot outsource your risk. All right. Newsflash: cloud is secure, but cloud could also be not secure. So what do I mean? There is something we call shared responsibilities. Google, AWS, Azure, they provide certain level of protection, security controls. But when we focus on data control, you are responsible for your data. That's number one. If you do not protect your data, we're talking about access management, identity and access management, very important. Having your own data, who can access your own information in the cloud, then it becomes your responsibility to do so. Let's just say you have your data in the cloud and a data subject needs that information and they cannot get access to it. GDPR is not going to go after AWS or Google, they will come after you. You cannot outsource your risk. But we have to focus on what's your responsibility in protecting your information you have stored in the cloud. That must be very defined when you want to choose a partner, maybe, for your data management processes, or if at all you just want to use a platform in the cloud, you have to understand what a cloud service provider is responsible for and what you're responsible for. At my organization, security is a first-class citizen. Everybody plays a significant role in protecting data. Let me paint a little scenario for you. 57%, according to what we see on the slide here, use email. Well, if you use an Outlook or Gmail, for instance, it's a SaaS platform. It's a cloud solution. If you click send, that piece of data goes out of your environment to someone else. If you do not have the right protection on that environment, you're likely going to lose it. That's not going to be an Outlook or a Gmail problem. It's going to be you. We are all equally responsible for what we keep in the cloud and how we protect what we keep in the cloud. So yes, as Gary said, you cannot outsource your responsibility.
Now, I think it's a really important point, and again, a phrase I think anyone watching this should write down and really contemplate is that shared responsibility model. When I'm talking about shared responsibility to an audience, quite often I will say to them, whose responsibility is it to keep your money safe in your bank account? Is it the bank or is it you? And now hopefully I'm driving them down to get to the conclusion of, well, it's a shared responsibility. I'm hoping that the bank is going to have lots of things in place to secure my money, which, let's be honest, now money is just ones and zeros quite often. It sits on a cloud service somewhere, but me as a user of that system, of those services, I have a shared responsibility not to give out my PIN number, to transfer money in the right way, to act responsibly to it. And I think that's a really important model. I think when people are thinking about cloud, is to think about, well, what's the responsibilities? And it comes down to, we talk about GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. It's very clear in there what is a data controller, what is a joint controller, and what is a processor. And you need to consider again that Google and Amazon and Microsoft and others are merely processors in the journey. You are the data controller, and therefore you can't outsource risk. You can have shared responsibility, but you can't outsource accountability. I think that always sits with the organization that determines the need for collecting and processing data. So yeah, that shared responsibility model, I think, is vitally important.
So you, I guess you've touched on some of the cloud service providers, but I think one thing which is quite important to stress is, cloud isn't just AWS, it isn't just G Cloud. It's any service or any software you're using, which is someone else's, right? So I think one thing which is quite common and quite commonly more used than everything else is using cloud services for data in some form, whether it's storing that data or whether it's being able to use that data to drive something else, so kind of to help your business grow, I guess. For yourselves, I mean, Afonso, if you don't mind me asking, what kind of cloud technologies have you seen be adopted? I mean, what do you start to see that kind of SaaS is being adopted more commonly than things like platforms, or is it kind of the other way around in your eyes?
And so it depends on what the organization is doing. And so for small businesses, we don't really have the resources to develop, they just go for the SaaS platform. For organizations that want to have developers to actually build applications for specific use, they use the platform. For organizations that need a lot of infrastructure, they use the infrastructure as a service. But the SaaS is what most of us really would use, and most of you listening to us today, you're more likely going to touch SaaS like Google Drive, SharePoint, Dropbox, Azure, or Google Cloud itself. And like I said before, we're actually using a SaaS platform for this, conversation we're having today. So SaaS is what is actually most used because, again, the customer, someone like my organization, will not do so much to keep it running. So we trust that the cloud service provider would do it. We just pay for what we use. And that's the reason why you see more organizations adopt SaaS compared with platform or infrastructure as service.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And sorry, Gary, please.
Sorry, Mike. Well, I'm sorry. I was just going to say again, just to agree with Funzo there, that the clients that I deal with are using cloud, SaaS products, again, without any real recognition that it's a cloud service. So they use finance packages, they're using HR packages, they're using CRMs, the customer relationship management tools. And again, as Funzo said, they're using GoToWebinar, they're using Zoom, they're using Teams, and they don't see those as cloud systems. They just simply see these as a mechanism for them to be able to run their business. So cloud now proliferates through an organization in almost every single function within a business you can imagine. Remote management of and monitoring of physical security, for instance, we see that is moving into the cloud. And cloud storage is, I would say, is the foundation. That's where it starts from, Google Drive and Amazon and Azure and such. But then from there, people are buying packages that they use. And to your question, I think when you're asking about these resources and it's about data, the problem comes back to what we'd said earlier, that shared responsibility. When they're adopting these packages, they need to recognize that they're onboarding and bringing in cloud services. So yeah, it's there is more to it than the foundation, the data storage piece.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, with data, fundamentally every cloud service uses data. It has to have some area of data, and I don't think it's really a one-way street either. You make use of data within your business and you might send it to the cloud, but you're also getting information back from the cloud into the business. So you need to kind of control the channel both ways, regardless. And I think one of the key areas which everyone can always keep reviewing and enhancing is kind of in data access, data control. Who has the visibility of that data and sort of should they have access to that data and things like that. Sometimes that could be a monolithic task, right, for businesses to kind of understand. They can try and look back at their data and sort of see what's happening. But I guess, do you find that putting in place controls on data is a key worry, Gary, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, it is. And again, whilst we're here to protect data and almost protect organizations from themselves to some degree, we've got to remember that data is the lifeblood of an organization. So if we stem the flow of that, then the business is going to die. So we can't prevent the business from moving data around and using data in an effective way. But absolutely, it's a complex area, and I'm sorry to say, there is no one size fits all solution to this. The way that I approach this in organizations is, and I said this only to a client just yesterday, is tell me your data story. Tell me how data flows into your organization. Where does it sit? Who touches it? How is it shared? Who has access to it? And then we're going to go through that story and ultimately how is it destroyed? But we're going to go through every single one of those steps and test your assumptions about how that data is being managed on those steps. But it is very much about, for me, simple way, big piece of paper, drawing, picture paints 1,000 words. Tell me how your data flows through your organization. And in some ways that not only identifies some of the risks, but it also identifies some opportunities. We've found where we had a loop and we was like, well, why are they doing that thing with that data? They don't really need to see it, and it could be signed off here, and therefore we could reduce time for actually implementing this, and you get efficiencies if you understand the way that your data flows. I have a saying, you cannot protect what you don't understand. So understand your data story.
So Gary, you said it very perfectly in a way. So let me take you to the next level, where data access talks about you have access to something, but let's talk about data governance. If you don't know the way it flows within your organization, then it's going to become a problem. If you have the same data set in different places, that's going to increase your cost. So I started working on a project for my organization, the data governance project, and I wanted to understand how specific data sets come into the environment. If I can see the way it comes in, I should be able to audit it, track it all through to the point if we don't need it, we can remove it. The problem with businesses is they collect what they don't need. If you don't identify the data you need in your environment, you keep collecting. When you keep collecting, you cannot protect. When you do not adequately protect, then you have what we call a data breach. Just last year, according to a report, healthcare organization, for instance, on average, data breach cost 10.10 million US dollars. Gary said, data is the DNA, but I will also tell you that's what threat actors are looking for. Most of the time you hear, well, there is a ransomware. What is actually a ransom? It's your data, your ability to use your data the way you want to use it. And if we do not really understand that we need to protect data in the cloud, it's going to, remove the benefit of us moving to the cloud. Data access, data management, data governance, very key if you want to leverage the cloud environment.
I mean,
Yeah, I
we're very
agree
well
with
put.
all of that. I think just to kind of underline what Funzo said there, I think that just again understanding your data environment, recognizing, and I know it sounds like a very obvious thing to say in to the probably the listeners here, but I think your organization needs to just recognize that data is the lifeblood of your business, and that is the real target of cyber criminals. And if you're going to have a data breach, it's because of the data that you have. So knowing who's accessing that data is absolutely paramount.
I guess going back to kind of what you mentioned earlier, Gary, with the shared responsibility bit, do you think that when using cloud services, do you think that they actually kind of enable you to look at your data better or manage your data better using those services, or is there still kind of room for improvement? Maybe things like auditing, all the basic stuff is pretty tough.
Yeah, I think someone needs to still audit it. Someone still needs to take a look. And I think Funzo said it in all but words, or he actually said it right at the very beginning, which is understand your business need. And a very powerful word again that all of us should have in cybersecurity is why. Why do you want to transfer that data? Why do you want to adopt cloud? Why do you want to hold that data for that length of time? Very short anecdote here. I worked with a firm a couple of years ago, and their HR manager told me that when people came for a job interview, that when I was asking how do you get people into the business, what vetting processes do you have, and they said, well, we take a copy of their passport and their driving license and a utility bill, which is fairly standard. But then they said at the interview stage, so I said, well, hang on a minute. So if 50 people come for a job and you only give that job to one person, you've got 49 pieces of information on these other people. Why do you do that? And their response was, we've always done it that way. That's just what I was taught. And I've worked here for 5 years and I've always done that. So then, it was like, okay, we need to stop doing that. And let's look at, where have you stored that data? Well, it's stored on the cloud. It's within a CR, a HR portal. The HR portal, the HR cloud didn't ask why you're storing 2,500 passports, which you didn't really need. That required someone to audit and ask that intelligent question of, well, or just that dumb question almost, well, why do you need to do that? So it does need auditing. It needs human intervention. Technology can only take us so far.
Fantastic. So I guess we've been talking about data quite a lot. Fundamentally, we kind of see there being two types of workflows. There's differences between them, but the internal processes, usually server-to-server type processes, and then you've got the consumer-facing ones, which are sometimes ad hoc or kind of manual. I guess out of the two of them, they're very different fundamentally in sort of how they're used. Have you kind of, I guess, Funzo, if you don't mind me directing this towards you, but have you kind of come across any fundamental differences when you're kind of strategizing those types of deployments? sort of the difference is?
So really, of course, there are differences when business to business or business to customer. The expectations are totally different. But if I want to send you a message via Teams, or if I want to send you via WhatsApp, for instance, or Telegram, um, the level of protection, it's gonna be totally different. But the fundamental actually is, again, what is going out, who you sharing with. It does not matter if it is business to business or if it is just person to server or person to person. At the back end, we have the right controls or the infrastructure to actually enable the file exchange types to move on. So the key is not really what the server is. The key is, okay, what are we moving? Are we moving it? And do we have the right controls in place? For some of you listening to us, part of the conversation, in your organization, you're likely going to have the server to server or server to person or B2B. So you're using platforms like Teams to move your data, or you're using specific file transfer solutions to move your data. So the type you're moving out, what you need to put in place to make sure that access to this information is what you need to have is something you really want to consider.
Thank you. That's really useful. And you mentioned there kind of the access on top of your B2B processes. One thing which, when I speak to customers, sort of on this end, one thing which is always a tricky topic is kind of figuring out how many processes are doing things. It's kind of like fragmentation of transfers, and bringing on a lot of processes, trying to put them together, and trying to duct tape them to make sure things keep running. Gary, in your experience, I mean, have you noticed any kind of fundamental differences with how companies or people sort of handle their types of transfer flows? Do you kind of see a general strategy when it comes to their security, or do you kind of find it's more dependent on what type of information is being transferred here?
I think it's dependent upon what kind of information is being transferred. That I don't want to do organizations a disservice, because I think many of them, whilst they may not have a defined strategy, they will, they're in business to do business, which is that they want to, they need to transfer information to other companies. They want to share that information with with their clients or with suppliers and such. So they do rely upon the cloud provider quite often to define how that information will be secured, and whether it's, if it's B2B or if it's B2C. But you do still see people making fundamental mistakes, using email, for instance, to transfer confidential information. And again, back to the example that I gave earlier, when an organization is hiring someone will send in a copy of their CV and a copy of their passport via email, and then that organization then shares that internally through email through to various other people, or they may share it with another external body who's going to do the background checks for that organization, because they've never been told anything different and they think that's perfectly acceptable. And they think that in the background, the IT team must have put plans in place or things in place that will protect them, which again goes back to my previous point, which is everyone points to their one side or the other and says, well, our IT people are responsible for making it secure.
Yeah, it's not me, it's them. I completely understand. So yeah, I mean, we've kind of, it's been a little bit doom and gloom with the cloud. There's obvious massive benefits to cloud environments, especially SaaS solutions being able to kind of do more for you. But I think fundamentally, when we do talk of the cloud, the actual fundamentals of security kind of ties back to good security practice, right? Within a business, you kind of want it to, you always want your data to be secure and making sure that you've got that level of control over it. So some of the challenges that we've kind of seen when it comes to interfacing with cloud environments is popped up on the screen here. One of the key ones which I personally hear quite a lot is that control, data discovery, having that element of, I think, I don't really like the term, but there's always that shadow IT term that kind of comes up, where you don't have that control because everyone's got their own platform, their own kind of tool. Do you find that that is a big issue kind of within the industries or within the with the people who you're speaking to at the moment, or is it kind of, you know, not as big of an issue as what might be said, really? Fonzo, if you don't mind me asking you on that.
Michael, it's a big deal. It's a big issue. Shadow IT is, and I can start giving numbers of the impact of shadow IT or as a causating factor for server incidents. If you can see it, you can control it. If you can control it, you can protect it. Very simple, right? But having the right, solution in place that everybody uses, it's going to cut away the use of shadow IT. You said it. Somebody can actually download a piece of information and send it out and put it somewhere where they shouldn't be. In my organization, we track how files move. If you use any applications that is not approved, we block it. We block it at a network level. We also run through application, we block it, because we understand that once you put it there, we don't have control over it. So one possible solution that you want to consider if you're in your organization, you're adopting, a cloud strategy to move your data, is do you have the right solution that everyone can use? Because when people cannot use it, they talk about, well, I can't use it, I have to use something that is very friendly to me. That's one of the excuses people will use shadow IT for. Well, I just want something to do my job. You're not giving it to me. So the kind of solution that's going to help you manage your file transfer needs must be something your users can use very well. If not, shadow IT is going to cost your organization so much if you do not make it part of your strategy to use the right solution in place. And Michael, I believe you want to talk to us about why we need a transparent solution, right?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So yeah, so I don't think there's a silver bullet to kind of solve every security concern you can have, but good fundamentals, good controls, and in our eyes, a good platform like a managed file transfer solution is one of the ways that you can tackle pretty much all of those topics you mentioned, when it comes to governance, your data control, auditing, and I guess everything that is a main security concern when it comes to data management. The fundamental processes or the fundamental offerings that you get from managed file transfer is the ability to centralize processes, so you can bring them together. We touched on it again, but there's loads and loads of different SaaS solutions that customers are using. You could be having OneDrive, Dropbox, all these different platforms used solely for file collaboration or file storage in some way, and being able to kind of bring them under one hood for management, even if it's just a case of making sure that you've got archives of that information, or just an initial level of control, sort of on there to understand where that data kind of has gone to. These are all things that a managed file transfer solution is really designed for. You can kind of think of it as an interface to your storage areas and your data kind of transfer areas. So there's many ways you can kind of combine them together. The solution we offer here at Fortra is Go Anywhere, and with this product, we've got a fantastic a fantastic tool that can give you that holistic view of your file transfer operations. There is the ability to set up automation off of the back of this with comprehensive workflows, all done for a no-code or a low-code approach. So nice and easy for people to kind of pick up and maintain. Right, that's always kind of an afterthought for some of these transfer requirements. Is who's going to maintain it long term? Are we going to be able to update it in 10 years when inevitably things change and we have to get that updated? With Go Anywhere, we do have the ability with hardware as well as within the software to plug into cloud environments, whether that's into platforms on the environment or just into those SaaS offerings that I mentioned earlier. And there's ways that we can do this over secure channels to ensure that the connection itself stays secure and it stays completely under the control of whoever has deployed it. Whether you are kind of running in kind of a hybrid environment, multi-tenant, or just native cloud on a particular provider, we've got options available for installations on that. Now, the final thing which I'm going to kind of mention to everybody here is at the end of this session, we will be sending out a copy of an ebook as well as a link to a report we've got. The ebook is actually a fantastic read. It kind of runs through some subject matter experts kind of use cases and their kind of anecdotes of moving in towards cloud environments, which could be quite handy if you are considering that move yourself, or even vice versa, you know, moving from the cloud back into the organization. With that, I would like to say thank you very much to both yourself, Gary, and Funzo. It's been really interesting hearing some of your comments there, so very much appreciated. And thank you very much to everybody who attended the call today as well. If you do have any questions, please do continue to pop them into the question area. We will make sure we get back to you on that. But with that, I wish you all a good day and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.